we've got 4 great brands here that couldn't be more different on paper. We've got sports, retail, skincare, and spirits. They all share something in common about being relevant in culture. It's more about just being seen. It's about being understood, being timely, and really being authentic and how you do that. Just really quickly about me, a little gratuitous intro. I'm with MRI-Simmons. We help brands understand not just what their customers are doing, but why they're doing it. And that's really about what today's conversation is about. It's about cultural relevance rooted in real insights, how you can drive action, loyalty, and growth overall. So I'm going to kick it off with you, Luis, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Pretty general. When you think about cultural relevance, what does it mean for Naterra?
I mean, Naterra International has the brand you might be familiar with. It's Tree Hut, the sugar scrubs. So very viral. Really, what is value and importance for us to be aligned in cultural relevance is being part of the narrative with your audience, right? So you don't want to create something that is not there. You just want to understand your audience and add value to them. When you're adding value to their daily routine, they're having fun with our products, that's when we become relevant.
Okay. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Luis was just named AMA's CMO of the Year, so congratulations to Luis. Katie, so in previous conversations, you talked about, building genuine connections with communities. Can you share how that shapes cultural relevance with Weber Ranch? I mean, and, obviously you're coming from a very different perspective with, being more in a startup phase. So tell us how that works for you.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, let me explain who we are because we're pretty new. So I'm with Round 2 Spirits. Round 2 Spirits is founded by the same folks who founded Patron. So as you can imagine, Chili's is actually a big part of our story at Patron as well. And that margaritas later today might be some great tequila. But so Round 2, they sold Patron to Bacardi, and we're looking at what would they do if they were to do a Round 2, hence Round 2 Spirits. And over a 5-year period, they're all very close friends and kind of thought of all the different ways. What would we create if we wanted to kind of disrupt the category or disrupt the spirit space again? And it kind of goes back to where they finally had this moment of the obvious of, okay, we love agave. We love the tradition of agave. We love the making of spirits with agave, and then they just had this moment of, well, why hasn't anybody done anything with vodka in a more interesting way? And usually vodka is made with corn or wheat or potato, and they were thinking, well, we have this amazing premium ingredient. We could make this amazing premium vodka with agave. So from the start of who we are, we've actually started from a place of creating a new product that is really educational in the sense that when you go to a new bar or a new restaurant, or like Total Wine when we were pitching, it takes a minute to go, well, wait a minute. What do you mean it's a vodka made from agave, 100% Blue Weber agave? It's a hard thing to kind of wrap your head around. Well, that's just tequila, but as a vodka. And you're like, no, actually, vodka can be made from any ingredient as long as it reaches 190 degrees in distilling. And so when we think about what we're doing in social, it's been really interesting to kind of make those connections of what is the difference of what we're making. But then also trying to kind of find our place in that, because we're an agave spirit, but we're also a vodka. And so one of the big things that's happened for us recently is all brands and spirits are usually built in the on-premise, so how you show up in bars and restaurants. And we had we have a lot of these actually, but we've had one recently where the matcha martini on a menu started to trend. Someone went into one of our restaurants. We had a matcha martini on a menu. They made a video, and 4.4 million views later, all of a sudden the matcha martini is just going off the charts. And great big brands like DoorDash and Free People are all responding and commenting to this great video that someone created. And so it was a great moment for us to very quickly, unlike big brands who probably move in weeks or months, we moved in hours. And we were able to supply that restaurant TikTok trending badge for the menu so that as more people came in, they would know that is the matcha martini that is trending. We created assets really quickly. And then we built this playbook for the commercial team so they could take that to all the other bars that we were in and say, hey, did you see this? This matcha martini is trending. How can we get featured on your menu? How can we recreate the same story and use social and use trends and use that moment to actually turn it right into sales? And it's been a really powerful tool for us in the last few weeks, and it's made some big moments with our sales team to get into accounts that harder to move Goose off of a classic martini, but when they were like, oh, well, we could add a matcha martini versus replace a current vodka brand. So that's been a really huge moment for us to kind of take something in social and make it work in sales.
That's amazing. Thank you. Amy, there's a lot of signals out there from what consumers are doing, what they want. How are you keeping your pulse on the consumer? How do they think? How they act? What are your methods, tools, data? How are you pulling it all together?
Yeah, well, you may also wonder, what is Rupert Sports? So we're a female-focused sporting goods brand. So we focus purely on the gaps that major athletic companies ignore. Shoes made for the biomechanics of women's feet, right? Most shoes are made off of unisex molds. These are specifically made and proven to prevent injury. We got our start in the softball space, specifically with defensive gear, and over the last 20 years have now expanded into other sports. Number one high school sport, volleyball. So if you have female athletes in your household, come find me later. But to your question, though, on how do we mine for insights? So, while we are a 20-year-old company, we still are, I would say, a little bit of in that startup mode, as well as we're breaking into new sports. And so the best way that we do this is, and I've heard a lot of this today, social listening. I am very active on our socials, monitoring, responding. So it's like getting hands in to find those signals, to hear your customers, and doing the focus groups, pounding the pavement out at events. Like, if there's a lot of big corporations here, and that's where I was previously at American at big corporations, and so kind of taking it down to the bare bones of and talking to people can really be valuable, and where you're mining for those insights. So don't ever forget to either just pick up the phone and listen to a customer, or go to an event and speak one-on-one with them.
I love that. I think that's the second time today where someone said, just pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Nobody wants to talk on the phone anymore.
Or text.
Yeah,
whatever.
it's just amazing. Mario, I had the opportunity to see you speak recently at a different conference, and I was blown away with the tools you have in place, the lab stores that you have, everything that you're doing. You've got a unique lens with 7-Eleven's loyalty and insights platforms. How are you staying ahead of changing audience expectations? I'd heard about a little bit earlier about the car culture. How do you tap into those before they become a fading trend, and how do you make it realistic for the customer and impactful?
Well, that would be the secret sauce, and I'm not sure I'd probably be shot if I reveal the whole secret sauce. But there's no one method, right? We serve a lot of different people, and what we do is Marissa talked about the Brain Freeze Collective. The Brain Freeze Collective has at any given point it has about 240,000 members live in there, all mapped to the database. So almost everything we do, we ask our customers, is this going to be a thing or not, right? But talking about knowing exactly what's going to work, you never really know. But so there's a lot of going back and forth between Marissa's team that is doing all the cool, sexy things, and my team that is sort of testing it with the customers. But the one thing that is important is that it doesn't necessarily need to be a big audience. So Marissa was talking about the Cars of 7-Eleven is one of the most successful things we've ever done. The number of customers that trick up their cars and put a spoiler and tint all the windows and lower their cars and whatever it is that they do with their cars is fewer than 1% of the. It's like 0.01% of the customer base. Like there's no one that does that. But the number of customers that really like looking at those pictures is massive. So we always need to be careful not to look at, but how many people are into this trend? It doesn't really matter. What matters is, and when I talk to my team, I always ask everybody, go to YouTube and look at these videos called People Are Awesome. Has anybody seen those? Yeah, you've seen them. Go to YouTube, type in "people are awesome," and just look. There's people doing amazing things that you would never be interested in. But when you see somebody doing something really cool, like people riding bicycles with their feet, I don't know, weird things, and that's what we're trying to find is things that other people are going to think are cool.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit? I'm still not visualizing what's happening with that car culture event. Like, what can you describe to us what it looks like? Like, what is the actual takeaway for people when they see it?
Well, as Marissa said, people started doing it organically. People just, for some reason, really like taking pictures of their tricked up cars outside of 7-Eleven with the glow of the lights and all that. When we noticed it, this was about, I think it was 4 years ago, suddenly it became a thing because somebody in TikTok said, hey, has anybody noticed how sick this thing 7-Eleven is doing? And so suddenly there's a car meet that is going to be planned, I think it was from Philadelphia or somewhere like that, right? And so our PR team is like, oh my God, we found about this. How do we stop it? And we're like, no. It was like, I mean, the whole play between Marissa and our PR team was like, no, we don't want to stop it. Yeah, but that could turn into, you're going to get all these goons with cars into a 7-Eleven. And is the franchisee going to be safe? It's like, no, let's embrace this, right? So we communicated with the franchisee, hey, this is happening. We think it's going to be okay. We took some precautions there with local authorities and all that, letting them know, hey, this is happening. It is sort of sanctioned by us, but keep an eye on it. And once that happened, sort of organically, more of these started happening. Then I don't know all the details, but at some point we got a super duper car photographer, Larry Chen is his name, Marissa, Larry Chen, who I don't know how we got him, and he started coming into 7-Eleven when these events were happening to take pictures of the cars, and then it got bigger, then bigger, because this guy takes a lot of pictures of, there's a big car culture in Japan of tricking up cars, etc., and he does a lot of work there, so that gave it a lot of credibility, so it just ballooned, and we're just sort of marshalling it like a little toddler. Okay, don't fall off the stairs, but letting it grow organically.
It's amazing. I'm from LA, and car culture is everything, so it really resonates. Katie, you talked about the matcha martini. What makes those moments stick? What's your approach to jumping on trends and keeping the impact, but we're not following something that might be dead in a week or two?
Yeah, I think something that has been true, not just with Weber Ranch, but it has always kind of, even from a content strategy or even like using, sometimes I think of search or SEO in a way of like, where is there low supply and high demand? Meaning there's a high demand of interest. There's a lot of curiosity. People are interested, but there's actually a low supply of content or a low supply of people making that type of content. So there's an opportunity to kind of insert and be a part of something while it's potentially on the rise, and hopefully then be a part of the kind of the sustainability of that. And so the matcha martini is a perfect example of like high demand, low supply. So if we think about our vodka competitors, they all have very different kind of classic signature drinks that they're all creating content and want to own. So if I'm one of the key big vodka suppliers, like I want to own the classic martini, obviously. When I worked at Patron, we want to own the margarita. But there are these great opportunities, and this is true in any industry, if in fashion, I've worked at Victoria's Secret, where there's low supply and high demand, where you can start to kind of edge out a moment where you can punch above your weight and break through the noise and be a part of something where people have a high passion for something, and you can be present in that and then build off of that. And the other great thing is once you get that audience engaged where there's maybe a high demand and low supply, you can then start to then switch them into the things that you do want to, over a long tail approach, be a part of. So we would love to own the classic martini. We're a year-old brand. That's not going to happen. So the matcha martini kind of presented itself as a great opportunity for us to kind of participate, collaborate, and be a part of it, but also know that our competitors are focused in other areas where there's bigger gains, but we feel like this is a way for us to start to build that and then also hopefully then re-engage these people and kind of show how we can be in these other kind of classic drinks where maybe it's a little bit harder for us to do that just on our own in the beginning. So
that's great. Thank you. Amy, with your experience with youth-focused brands, the attention span can be a challenge, right? I would imagine. What turns short-term influence into long-lasting impact for your customers and your audience?
Yeah, for us, being the teen girl is our audience. We really believe in the power of group dynamics, especially, the fact that a lot of the sports that we're in, our categories we're in, are team sports. And so, there's this research out there, right, that says 25% is where you really get in a group to that tipping point of somebody really starting to be open or receptive to another person's idea. So how we've kind of translated that influence into impact is, okay, how do we get more shoes on people? So we ran a free giveaway last volleyball season. So again, just about getting shoes on players, but not just any player, right? Targeting team captains, letting coaches nominate those team captains, trying to find the most influential girl or person on that team, putting them in the shoes, getting them to love the shoe, because when they put it on, they love it, and letting them do the advocating for us. And so we found that very successful in terms of, getting the product out there, getting it into more hands, and letting that organically and naturally create that influence and impact.
Great, thank you. You hit my follow-up question as well, so perfect. Luis, how do you align the teams across insights, creative, and execution at your company to, when it gets to scale and complexity becomes a bigger issue?
Yeah, I've worked in several larger companies, and it's substantially more difficult. There's a lot of red tape, mostly European companies I work for. The beauty of it is you do gotta believe these opportunities present themselves. Like we just heard about the car culture, we just heard about the shoes, we heard the spirits, the matcha martini. It is important that you are a great storyteller, that you have great relationships, at least if it's the ultimate decider. It's a lot easier than when you have 3 or 4 layers off. But you want to make sure that you have a great network with who's going to hold the umbrella for a little bit for the rain while you try this. One, I will say network, obviously, with your boss, supervisor, make sure that it gives you a little bit of air coverage that you need. And then after that, you got to sell it. You got to sell the idea and sell them the vision. I'm sure Mario went in and it's like, it's just not this car thing. Like, he went with this humongous dream, and then when people start seeing it and how it aligns, I think going back to the first question, adds value to your audience and aligns with your brand, then it's a very easy conversation. People will go and do it. And the challenge is you might be wrong, and that happens, but most of the time you'll be right if you believe it properly. And I think that networking, that air coverage, and that storytelling is what really allows you to pursue these opportunities.
What if when you're running a group, and this could be to any of you, I heard it mentioned before, if somebody brings an initiative or an idea in that sense that they say there's not going to be a direct revenue impact on what we're going to do here, but we believe it's the right thing to do to be able to connect with this consumer, how much appetite do you have for that? Like, or do you want to see the numbers behind it? Like, before we move forward with this, I need to see XYZ ROI. Is there appetite for those not non-sales figure moving initiatives?
It depends truly on the brand, and always you want to do efforts to drive sales, but as well you want to present the long term in a way that it's not going to sell today, but if we don't start talking to this audience in 5 years, there'll be no sales. Then you paint again a story of, oh wow, okay, and then you need to scare finance sometimes. That is like, it's great now and you might not get the ROI that you're looking for, but if we don't do it in 5 years, there's nothing else. I don't know if we will be here. And they start like thinking about it, painting the vision to be able to reach ones. I think we need to take risks, and not everything needs to be numerical.
I love that. Katie, somebody who's worked across commercial and marketing teams, how does integration show up at Weber Ranch?
Well, it's very integrated because we're very small, which is amazing. I've worked on global teams. I've worked globally. I've worked for a market. I've worked in marketing. There's always an interesting challenge between who's accountable and what performance looks like between commercial and marketing. And it's always been so interesting to me that those usually, at least in big companies that I've worked at, have always been very disconnected and hard to kind of connect. And so being at Weber Ranch, I mean, we're really small. We are startup, and but we also all have been at really big brands, and so we're kind of while we're moving like a startup, we kind of think like a big brand. And so it's been really great because the commercial team and myself, I mean, we're texting, and they're probably texting me now because they're like, hey, I'm in this account and this is happening. Can you, like, hey, I need this, like, today. And I'm like, cool, like, we can do that. We'll whip it around. But I think that's been the most refreshing thing about this new experience is, one, I am commercially like in the weeds with them on where, what demographics, what geographies, like what markets are trending most for us from a sales perspective. And knowing, too, that we have consumers and we have customers. So we're constantly looking at it from the 3-tier perspective of, like, what do we need to do to be on shelf, be front and center? But then also what is the consumer need to know in that moment of truth that this is the right brand for them? So it's a really refreshing experience to not be caught in what you were saying, which is what my previous life was, which is, we have the board and then we have the shareholders and then we don't have any of that. It's just us. I'm party of one.
Yeah,
I'm the only marketer at the company right now. So,
I'd
pretty
echo
easy.
that. Yeah, it's like fail fast and try new things, and
it's awesome.
And so I would say, however, if I could take that back to my corporate previous life, it would be allow yourself to the room, or allow your marketers to be able to try new things, test new things, to not be afraid. Obviously, certain brands have more at risk. For us, right, high risk, high reward, right, and so you do it in a way that's safe for your brand. Obviously, again, a teen audience, we're not going to go crazy.
Absolutely.
But if it doesn't work, then we move on and we pivot, and we always present it as a way that we're nimble. We're going to try it a 3-month period, and if it doesn't work, then we're on to the next thing, and back at it. So
may I just add? It's like I love that. Like it's a lot easier when it's a smaller organization, right? But in my previous 20 years of experience, it's been really large, and there's the boards and all that. And I think I go back to, like, even people in the room, like, you gotta story tell it, right? So at least, even if it's your senior brand manager, like you're a brand manager, believes and buys this story. Like storytelling, we're marketeers, we gotta storytell. Like I storytell to my wife, like this, to be able to, to my kids. We always need to be on that mode, because once they see it, they really join you, regardless of the layers.
But at the end of the day, like, even in big companies, it's funny, my Lee Applebaum, who's the president of Weber Ranch and used to be the CMO of Patron, we were talking about this the other day because we are enjoying our experience so much. And he said, but it's really just culture. Because at the end of the day, Patron was a big company and we acted just the way that we're acting at Weber Ranch Vodka. So we basically took the culture that they built and brought it back to the new company that we're in now. And so there's nothing preventing big corporations from doing what startups or smaller companies do. It's really the culture that you're in.
Yeah. So, Katie, kind of as follow-up to that, my understanding is you recently launched a new AI tool.
Yes, I know this.
So, how are you thinking about relevance versus kind of authenticity as it relates to using a tool like this? I don't know if this is probably the first conference I haven't heard AI talk about every single
I know,
discussion.
And I know earlier it's like, oh, wait, I know AI, right? It's like one of the I think so. At the end of the day, we are solving problems as a young or a small company that we don't have scale. And so anytime that you can use technology to help solve not only a business problem, but understand a consumer gap. And so we've identified a consumer gap. And I think and this is not a new consumer gap. Anybody in the spirits industry knows, like, mixing at home is always a challenge. There's a lack of confidence. You don't have the right ingredients. Maybe when a bartender is like, oh, I have lavender infused simple syrup. And you're like, well, what do I do with that? Like, where is that? How do I buy it? And so I think for us, like, using AI, because we just don't have the resources. I use AI every day on I don't know about you guys, if you're doing it like I'm doing it, but I'm writing copy through AI. I'm testing. I'm actually putting different variations of ads an AI and saying, what would you do differently? What do you not like? How could I tweak it? Or give me a better version that's based on wellness versus on. So I'm using, I think we'll use AI as a brand, how I'm using it even as a marketer, which is, how can I enhance or improve utility or create a better outcome? And that's what we want to provide to our consumers. So I definitely would never do like a kind of a Bob Fosse jazz hands of like, look at us, we're using technology. But if it can solve a real consumer problem, then we're all in. And also it just helps us because we don't have the scale of other big suppliers.
Yeah, like the speaker earlier, who it's like, talk to my AI. We did the same thing with all of these historical focus groups that you start and you're like, I don't have time to sit and watch all these videos. Put it into AI and we can talk to it and say, how would we message this based on what the consumer focus groups have said? So that's been a huge just way, again, like you said, is very few of my marketing team. And so how do we maximize our work and use the insights, but unlock it? But it's real humans, not the robots telling us what to do.
Can I get a time check? I know we started a little bit late. Who am I looking at? 5. Okay. This one's not on my list, but I was doing a little bit of research last night and I came across this. I'm not even sure how it fits into the topic of this conversation, but as it relates to behavioral targeting, and I think the phrase that was coined by you or the article was written was marketing vomit as it relates to it, Mario. Can you dig into that a little bit for us and kind of contrast it to being culturally relevant with your customers and what does it mean to you or just dig into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, so my colorful language comes to bite me again, and actually I'm going to use more colorful words to answer the question, but I think marketers often, as a lot of people, we tend to go from ditch to ditch. And we were having a conversation, everybody excited about automation and AI, and you can personalize at the speed of light. It's like, there's a famous quote from a British copywriter said, shit delivered at the speed of light, it's still shit when it gets there. I think we need to be really careful about getting really excited about everything you can tweak and change and all that, and not lose the essence of your brand, the essence of what you're communicating and the culture. What we're trying to do in 7-Eleven, which is very different, is we're not trying to be everything to everybody, because we're not. The things that 7-Eleven is getting really good at is identifying very small niche audiences that we can create a very personal connection with that looks authentic to them and to all the audience that sees that connection. So the cars, for example, what we did with Jamar Chase, it didn't look forced, right? And that gives us outsized returns for a very small marketing budget. But my whole point was just don't go over the ditch with a whole personalization, et cetera, and forget about what matters in marketing, which is the essence of your brand and the culture, which is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we're short on time. Luis, for the brands out there who don't know where to start with cultural relevance, do you have some advice where to start?
Yeah, definitely. You gotta listen. I think this was mentioned, but you gotta listen. Just sit down, take a moment, and listen to your audience. What are they doing? What's important to them? It's different. Also, you gotta differentiate between what you believe and what your brand stands for. They're mostly aligned. There's a lot of things, but it's not the same. So put your brand lens and really observe your audience. You'll find incredible starting points to launch campaigns, to launch, to understand them, and to really be successful. That then, in the end, that will drive the sales that you're looking for. But it's just taking a moment, pause, and observe and listen.
Great. Well, I'm super excited to have had the opportunity to speak with all of you. I think the mindfulness that you're all applying to what you're doing gives me faith in the opposite of the marketing vomit side of things that I think a lot of companies are doing. I think there's a lot of just general thoughtfulness, and it gives me some it warms my heart a bit, and I mean that in the most meaningful way. So thank you all. Appreciate the time, and thanks for letting me be a part of this.
Thank you.